All right, well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here tonight, and thank you all for having me, and for making time in your schedules to hear what I have to say about nutrition. First thing I always like to do is anytime I'm doing a nutrition talk is to acknowledge the fact that you guys being interested in nutrition and taking that interest in your own health is a bigger step than a lot of people take. So I just want to congratulate you all on caring about your health and being here to learn a little bit more about it. My goal is to give you guys some high content, high value information. I usually approach nutrition from a bit of a different standpoint than a lot of people are used to. We're not going to talk about specific foods or things like that, but more about how you can eat and why that's important. And on each of the tables, I've put out some handouts for you guys. It's kind of a basic set of notes. If you want more detailed notes, you can email me, and I'm happy to send you guys a more complete version. And also on the table, there's an evaluation form. And I just want to thank you in advance for filling it out. So please do fill it out. The comments I get on the evaluation forms really help me to be able to provide really relevant, exciting information that really helps people improve their health. So I don't want to stand up here and bore everyone with the same old information they've heard before. So by filling out those evaluation forms, you can really help me to know whether or not I'm on track with that goal. So really do appreciate you taking the time to do that. So my typical client doesn't really, it's not really the same demographic that all of you fall into. I typically work with women who are busy career women. They're working kind of the 9 to 5. They really care about their jobs, and they are burnt out at the end of the day. And they go home and they don't have any energy left for their friends and their family, their hobbies. They sit down on the couch to have a bit of downtime and they fall asleep. So the information that I'm providing is information I share with them, but the thing is that it's relevant to everyone. So no matter where you come from or what your background is, this information can really help you out. So to give you guys a little bit of information about my background, I'd love to be able to tell people that I became interested in nutrition out of some big profound experience or anything like that. But the truth is, back in I think 1998, I booked a trip to Cancun, and my big goal was just to look good in a bikini. And that for me, was a pretty superficial goal, but it really launched a career. I didn't always work in nutrition. This is something that I started in the last few years, but from that girl in her first year of university who wanted just to look good, I've had quite the journey of discovering new things. And along that journey, my dad was actually diagnosed with cancer. He had a very short battle. And now when I look back, at the time when he had cancer, they never gave any information on what he could do to have better health. They basically said what he did to have bad health. And so they didn't give us any pointers on how to improve. And so every time I learn something new about nutrition, I'm always really thinking back into that kind of mindset and how we need to be proactive and preventative and do things for our health that help us to have long, sustainable lives. And it's not just about the immediate future of a pant size or a certain number on the scale, but it's really about how we feel in our bodies and having the energy to get through our lives and enjoy them. So that's kind of where I come from. And my presentation tonight is all about eat well, be well. And so we're just going to kind of roll right into things, and I'll let you guys know to start with what today's goals are all about. So today what I want to do is teach you guys a little bit, first off, about how your bodies work and give you a little bit of extra information there in how it relates to what we eat. I want to change everybody's mindsets perhaps just a little bit on what eating healthy really means and the role that we all play in that. When I talk about nutrition, I can tell you it's not about calorie counting. I don't focus on that kind of stuff really at all. I'm not going to bore you with details of fat-free foods or things that have no flavor or tell you to, have a boring diet or anything like that. I think that food's meant to be enjoyed, and we just need to know the impact on our body so that we know how to enjoy it without it being detrimental to our health. We're going to go over a couple barriers to getting value out of your food, and I want to give you guys a set of tools that you can take today, start using today if you want to, and it's going to have really immediate impacts on your health. So, grab my water. So the first thing I want to talk about is is stress. So everybody in this room is experiencing stress, probably from a number of different sources. But first off, just to define what stress really is, it's just the emotional and physical strain caused by our response to pressures from the outside world. So there's all sorts of sources of stress. And probably the most significant one that anyone can experience, in which I understand a lot of people in this room have experienced, is illness. And that can be illness of your own, illness of somebody you care about. It has a real toll on the body. Marriage or divorce is another significant stressor. Changes in our financial status, our living situation, our sleeping patterns, all those things have huge impacts on us. And so does the food that we eat. And it's not just about the food we eat, but also the state of mind that we're in when we have our foods. If we're stressed when we eat, it's going to have a different impact on us than if we are in a great state of mind. So what I have here for you guys is, I want you guys to really understand what happens in stress. And this is all going to tie into your food here in a minute. With stress, there's sorry, I just want to make sure I'm on track with my notes. What we're seeing here is kind of where the blood flow goes in our bodies when we're in a state of stress. So if you have an emotional stress versus a physical stress, your body doesn't really care where the source of the stress is coming from. It has a stress response. And that stress response is the same no matter what the source is. It just maybe has different degrees of how severe that response is. So I always like to kind of put it into a perspective that people can all understand and relate to. So for me, one of my stressful experiences I can remember is back in junior high, so quite a long time ago, and I was walking home one day and saw a dog, a German Shepherd, following me, and I didn't really think much of it. And as I went down this pathway between two houses, all of a sudden the dog was right on me, barking at me, growling, and I suddenly found myself just backed into a corner. And I was panicking, I was freaking out. In that moment, I had a stress response. And what happens is stress hormones are released that cause your blood pressure to go up, cause your heart rate to go up, it causes your blood sugar levels to go up, and that's all to fuel that fight or flight response that we've all heard about. And it gets more oxygen to your muscles. But the part we don't often hear about is that in that stress response, the blood flow also goes away from my core, and it's going out to my big muscles, like my legs and all of that. And when it goes away from the core, that suspends digestion. It stops digestion. So we have no fuel going to that process. Also, though, our immune system is based in our digestive tract. And so when there's no blood flow to digestion, there's no blood flow to immunity either. So when we have a lot of stress in our lives, it really impacts how we can digest or how healthy we can be. So the problem with this isn't that we have a stress response. Stress response is really good and really important, but a lot of us in our culture, we have stress all the time. We have stress while we drive, at work, at home. We turn on the TV and there's stressful programming on the news and all these shows like CSI with people getting murdered and all that kind of stuff, and it's all very stressful, and we experience that like it's our own stress. So how this is going to relate to our food, this is going to start to show this for you guys. So this is all about the blood sugar crash, which is a type of stress. So in this particular example, I have kind of illustrated like you're having an apple. So when you have an apple, this orange line is your blood sugar level. So as we start to digest food, our blood sugar levels go up, and eventually they'll come down. When our blood sugar levels get higher than what we need, insulin is released. And insulin triggers our body to start absorbing that excess blood sugar, and we get to store it for later when we really need it. And it gets stored into our muscles and into our liver in a form called glycogen. As that insulin's released and the blood sugar starts to get absorbed for storage, our blood sugar starts to go down. And then there's this other hormone called glucagon that most of us don't really ever hear about. And what it does is, as our blood sugar now gets lower than what we need, it does the opposite of insulin. It tells our body to release that stored energy. So this is a great thing, device that we have in our body. And if there's glycogen there for us to use, it gets released and our blood sugar starts to go up again. Or maybe we have another meal and so our blood sugar starts to go up again. But oftentimes what happens is we deplete those resources and we don't eat again soon enough. And our blood sugar continues to drop until we are in what we call a blood sugar crash. And a blood sugar crash is just like a dog attacking us. It is a stress situation. Our body kind of perceives it the same way. It sees us as being in a state of crisis, and so our digestive system gets turned off, our immune system gets turned off, and all that blood flow gets directed out to our muscles. The other piece of it too is that blood flow, I didn't mention this before, blood flow changes in our brain. Instead of going to our forebrain, where we have all this creative thought, we make logical decisions, now our blood flow is going to our hind brain, and that's more primitive thought, where you just kind of yes, no, black, white, you don't really think things through. It's just, instant decision of like do or die. So it's not really great for relationships. I've been told I get very cranky when I'm hungry and in a blood sugar crash. And I think most of us have people in our lives that get like that. So, it doesn't just affect us physically, it affects us emotionally as well. So what we can do about this to avoid the blood sugar crash. What we have here is a pretty typical day for a lot of people. Most of my clients, when they first come to me, this would be what I'm looking at best. They have their breakfast at 8 a.m., their lunch at 12, their dinner at 6 p.m., and they eat nothing else during the day, if they even eat this. And so what happens is this blue lines, they have their breakfast, they get some blood sugar going up, their blood sugar starts coming down. Well, the average, here we've got 4 to 6 hours between meals. The average meal only provides us with 2.5 to 3.5 hours of energy. So we're not having enough energy to get us to our next meal. And that means blood sugar crashes. So this person is having at least 3 blood sugar crashes during their day. That's 3 self-induced bouts of stress. 3 times where they're turning their immune system off, 3 times where they can't digest things, and 3 times where they're really harming their bodies and their minds. And you're not productive during those moments. That's where your productivity and your feelings about yourself and about life are going to be at their lowest. So what can we do to drop those blood sugar crashes away? It's pretty easy. We can actually just add some fruit snacks in during the day. Now, I get a lot of resistance to fruit. A lot of people say, but fruit has sugar in it. Sugar turns to fat. This is going to be bad for me. Well, sugar in fruit is very different from the sugars we have in the rest of our lives that we get, at the convenience store. Sugar in fruit is also accompanied by fiber. And fiber helps slow our digestion down. And not to mention that the fruit also is chock full of nutrients and vitamins, so it's actually really good for us. But the really important part in this diagram is that it's filling in those gaps between our meals, so our blood sugar levels stay really high. So we have energy even throughout the entire day. And just a little FYI, a side effect of this is that we stay in a fat-burning state all the time, but I won't go into all those details. So on your handouts, this information is there. It's what I call meal timing tips, and it's just some timing guidelines that you can use through your day to help keep your meals spaced out at the right distances from your fruit snacks and things like that, so that you can have that even blood sugar. So you can start kind of planning your day and saying, okay, what makes sense? How can I keep my blood sugar levels high? And it really just comes down to, from having a piece of fruit to having a meal, you want to leave 30 to 60 minutes between those two. If you're going from a meal to a piece of fruit, it's 2.5 to 3.5 hours. And if it's from a meal to a meal, it's also 2.5 to 3.5 hours. So those timelines are all on that handout, so you don't have to memorize that. The reason, some people might already be wondering this, but the reason that fruit has a different timeline than the meal is because fruit digests very differently than a meal does. Fruit's really unique. When we have fruit, 90% of the digestion happens right up here in our mouths. The saliva mixes with the fruit, and there's all these wonderful enzymes that start breaking it down. What then happens is it goes to our stomach, and it only takes about 30 minutes to digest and leave our stomach. If I eat that piece of fruit with a meal that has proteins and fats in it and everything like that, it's going to digest a lot slower. But the fruit ends up sitting there way longer than it needs to. And so it starts to ferment and rot and get all these kind of reactions going on. And that's when you get a lot of bloating and gas. It's actually from mixing the wrong kind of foods together. So you can avoid a lot of digestive discomfort just by keeping your fruits always separate from the rest of your foods. So it's kind of a little known fact. So I want to give you guys a bunch of tools that you can use to kind of reduce your stress, because reducing your stress is going to improve your digestion and improve your immunity, which are really, really important things. So let's see here. So first off is actually just to breathe. Seems simple, but a lot of people do forget to breathe, at least doing some deep breathing. You don't need to get into anything really serious or crazy, but it's really about 5 deep breaths. When you're having a really stressful day, I had probably like 6 or 8 months ago, I had one of those days where it was appointment, and I was running from one place to the next, and stopped to have my lunch. And I work from home, so I often eat my lunch on my couch, and sat down on the couch, and I was like inhaling my food. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I was one of my clients, I would totally, chew my butt out, but I would not be happy with myself. And so I stopped and did my 5 deep breaths. And by the end of the 5th deep breath, I kid you not, I actually had my head back on the couch, and I was, eyes closed, and I was so relaxed. So in the time it took me to do 5 deep breaths, I went from a very, very stressed feeling and high anxiety to extreme calm, where I could have just, fallen asleep. I felt like I was at the spa or something. So it's something simple you can do for yourself that's really powerful. Downtime is another stress relief, and that doesn't need to be alone. It can be with friends, it can be with family. What's important is that it's, I call it unscheduled time, where you're free to do it or not do it, whatever you want. Exercise is an amazing stress relief. Quality time. So that can be quality time with yourself, with your friends, your family, your pets. It can be quality time with an activity you really enjoy, whatever it is that makes you feel good. Laughter is an incredible stress relief. So turning on the TV to a funny show, going to a funny movie when you're stressed out can be absolutely amazing for your body and mind. Taking your breaks. This one I always hear. I used to work in corporate HR, and people always say, I don't have time for breaks. It's too busy. I have too much to do. There's always 5 minutes to take a break. I don't care where you have to do it. If it's a stairwell, if it's a stall in the bathroom, you find that time by yourself. Take 5 minutes to just not have anyone demanding anything of you, and to just have alone time where you're just calm. It's really, really good for you, and those 5 minutes of taking a break will make you feel so much better when you're done, that you're going to be able to kind of just attack your life, right? So, and the last one is rest and relaxation, which is all about sleep. So really, I always tell people to have 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I get a lot of people saying that's just not possible, or they don't need that much, but there's some guidelines you can use to know if you're getting enough sleep. When you go to bed, if you lie down and you put your head on the pillow and you don't even remember trying to fall asleep, you just are out, that means you're too tired. That is wiped out, exhausted, and you need to get more sleep. If you're going to bed and you're tossing and turning and you can't sleep, a lot of the times it has to do with being hungry. So my tip with that one is, if you're tossing and turning through the night, get up and have a little bit of juice, just like a quarter cup or something like that. And that little bit of juice sometimes is just enough to knock you out. So it seems counterintuitive because it's sugar that's supposed to keep you up, but it actually, a lot of the times, if you can't sleep, it's because you haven't had enough to eat close to bedtime, so your blood sugar's low. And also, contrary to popular belief, you can make up for lost sleep. So if you have a bunch of nights in a row where you didn't get enough sleep, allow yourself to have a really good sleep in on the weekend. So water is my next order of business. And I get a lot of resistance to this one too. I guess I get a lot of resistance to a lot of things. Water is what I call nature's best medicine. Water is needed for everything in your body. There is nothing that can happen that doesn't require water, and it's absolutely essential for our health. So cellular function doesn't happen without water. Your body is made of about 60% water. Your brain is about 70% water. Your blood is 80% water, and your lungs are 90%, almost 90% water. So if you don't have water in your body, those are some pretty major parts of your body that are being affected quite adversely. Water is also necessary for cleansing and detoxification. So, when we're undergoing, if we're ill or anything like that, chemotherapy is actually a really good example where you have this process that's killing cells in your body. We don't want those cells then to stay in our body. We want to flush them out, and we need water to do that. And that happens with, even if you're not undergoing an illness or a treatment or anything like that, just day-to-day processes in your cells, they're like little factories, and they have pollution coming out of them, and you need to get that pollution out of your body, and water and fiber are actually what helps carry that out. So you can't underestimate it in that aspect. And then, of course, that ties into disease prevention. If we're leaving toxins in our bodies and we're not flushing them out, then that can lead to disease. I also want to talk about making good water better. So I get a lot of people telling me with water that a problem with it is then they have to go to the bathroom more often if they drink more water. So I've got some tips here for you that are going to help you to not experience that. And they're actually really easy things to do that pretty much nobody knows about. So first, I just want to talk about dechlorinating your water. So has anybody ever given any consideration to chlorine in the water being a bad thing? I see at least 2 hands. So you guys may or may not know this, but chlorine, the whole purpose of it is to kill bacteria. So when water goes into our water treatment plants, it gets a batch of bacteria or a batch of chlorine into it to kill the bacteria. Before it leaves the treatment plant, it gets another dose of chlorine. And that's so that as it takes that journey from the plant to our house, it doesn't pick up anything new. We want to kill that stuff all the way on the trip. Now, when that water comes out of the tap and I put it in my water bottle and then I drink it, I'm now drinking that chlorine. Now, my entire digestive system is based on healthy bacteria, and I need that bacteria to digest food. About 50% of my immune system is based out of my digestive system, so I need that to have healthy immunity. But if I'm drinking chlorine, I'm wiping that bacteria out, and I'm really disabling myself. So what we can do is dechlorinate our water, and there's tons of ways to do it. You can buy reverse osmosis systems for your home. You can get Culligan machines with the big jugs of water. You can go to the grocery store, buy filtered water there. And there's a really, really simple way to do it, and that's just to take a jug of water, fill it up from the tap, leave it open, and put it on your counter for 24 hours. Chlorine's a gas, and that gas will just dissipate out of the water. And so you magically have dechlorinated water for absolutely no cost. It just took a little patience. So that's one extremely good thing you can do for yourself. You can also add a pinch of mineral salt to your water. So when I say a pinch, I mean just a teeny tiny pinch. If you can taste the salt in your water, you have too much. It should not taste like salt water. Now, I do need to clarify the difference between salt that we hear about every day and mineral salt, which I say with a smile, and it's really good for you. So the salt that we always hear about and that our doctors say don't have, it is really bad for us. It's been treated at really high temperatures, about 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. And what happens when you treat things at really high temperatures like that is it totally destroys it. All the minerals that are supposed to be in our salt get absolutely destroyed. So there's no mineral content in regular table salt. And the reason we crave salt is for those minerals. The other thing that happens with regular table salt is that they then add chemicals to it, part of the treatment. Sometimes they add bleaches to it. Sometimes they add sweeteners to hide the flavor of the chemicals. All sorts of really crummy things that are happening. And when you drink that water, it actually kind of does bad things for your body. It's very acidifying. It causes you to have water retention, where the water ends up between your cells instead of in your cells, hydrating them. Mineral salt, on the other hand, is not processed. So when you go out shopping and you look for mineral salt, it should say on it that it's rich in minerals. It should say that it's unprocessed. Those are the types of words you're looking for. And it's going to be about 16% mineral content, 0% chemicals. So that's really amazing. Now, there's this little kind of saying, where minerals go, water goes. So if you're putting this little pinch of salt into your water, there's a few great things about it. One is that you're getting that salt into your diet all day long as you're sipping your water. And so all day long, that the minerals in that salt is pulling the water into your cells. So your cells are getting really hydrated. If you've ever experienced water retention, you'll probably find as soon as you start adding that salt to your water that it just goes away. So it's really awesome that way. It also increases your immunity. It improves your electrical communication within your body. And it's going to actually increase your absorption of water by about 30%. So now drinking a liter of water is kind of like drinking 1.3 liters. You get that bonus kind of out of it without really doing anything. And because you absorb the water better too, as you drink water, it doesn't just go right from your mouth to your bladder. It goes into your body, into your cells, and really helps do something with that. The other thing that we can do is add fresh lemon or lime juice to the water. Does anybody do that already? See some hands. So it's very similar to the minerals and the salt in that it helps pull the water into your cells. It's got phytochemicals in it. And those phytochemicals, they're a little bit addictive, in a good way. I don't like lemons. I didn't like lemon water, I didn't think. And I started using this just to kind of test it out. And I started craving lemon water. I read that this would happen. I didn't believe it. And suddenly there I was, like, I gotta have lemon in my water. And it made me feel so hydrated. Sometimes when you drink water, your mouth still feels dry afterwards. And I found with the lemon water, that didn't happen anymore. So it's really great that way. And it also, because it helps you absorb the water into your cells, it helps so that you don't just have that, drink the water straight to your bladder kind of feeling. I just want to back up for 1 second though, because I forgot to say something about the mineral salts. And that's that because it increases electrical communication in your body, if you're on medications, it can actually make them far more effective. So if you're on medication and you decide to use the mineral salt, it's really important that you work with your doctor, let them know you're taking these in so you can make sure you're still on the right dosage of medication. I know a nutritionist that was working with someone and she was on blood pressure medication and didn't talk to her doctor, started taking the salt, and her blood pressure just dropped right out. And she shouldn't have been taking so much of her blood pressure medication. So she ended up in the hospital from that. So it can be really, really significant. So I just really want to stress how important it is to communicate with your doctor. And if you need any information from me to explain to your doctor why you want to take this mineral salt, I'm happy to provide that to you. Just give me a call or send me an email, and I can kind of connect those dots for you. And last thing about water is that just because it's wet does not mean it's water. I always get asked, well, does this count as water? Does that count as water? If it's got sugar added, so if you're having juice that's pure juice, it's squeezed from the orange, you can count that towards your hydration because it's a natural sugar. If you're adding sugar to it, that's not as good for you. Well, it's not good for you. And so it does not count as hydration. If it's got caffeine, it's not hydrating. It does not count towards your water. So let's just make that clear. So just going to talk a little bit about nourishing foods now. So we're getting kind of towards the end of everything I have to say, but there's a few kind of things I want you guys to think about with your foods. But just before I go into this, I want to talk to you about what I call the 80% rule. So everything I've talked about so far and everything I still have yet to say, the 80% rule applies to it. And that's that if you do the right thing for your body 80% of the time, that is fantastic and awesome, and you should congratulate yourselves. A lot of clients I work with, I'll hear, we'll do our weekly check-in, and I'll ask them how things have been going, and they'll say that, they fell off the wagon, they had a piece of cake or something like that. And then we'll dig a little deeper, and I'll find out all the things they did right. And they had one piece of cake, who cares, right? Because it's nothing. They ate a pile of vegetables, and they exercised, and they did all these wonderful things for themselves, but they still think they fell off the wagon. Well, if you're doing the right thing 80% of the time, you can do that 20% of fun stuff, right? You can go and have a meal that is not good for you without feeling bad. Live your life, have fun, enjoy it. But it's all about that balance and preparing your body so it can handle those times that you maybe do something a little bit off the wall. So I want you guys to try avoiding processed foods. And I'm going to elaborate a bit on what I mean by processed. I did a seminar series where I said, don't eat processed foods. And the next week, everybody came back and said, well, I went shopping and now everything seems bad. What does processed mean? So some guidelines for you to follow. Foods that are deliberately altered. So a yogurt is a really good example of this, where we have fat-free yogurt, we have low-fat yogurt, we have regular yogurt. Well, the only yogurt that's natural is just regular yogurt. When we take the fat out of it, it's not actually yogurt anymore. This is something that's been deliberately altered for a sales purpose, and that is not good for you. So when you see things like that you know have been deliberately altered, that is a processed food. Fat-free, fat-reduced, fortified, sugar-free, these are all things we see a lot on processed foods. You'll see a lot of health claims on processed foods where they say, this may help reduce your risk of heart disease, or this is, I don't know the wording, but, it's great for, if you have diabetes, or gluten-free, and advertise all these things. Well, just because it's gluten-free, or just because it's contains some organic ingredients doesn't mean that it's good for you. And even if it's 100% organic, it doesn't mean it's good for you. So if it's got health claims on it, it's probably not healthy. Healthy food doesn't need to advertise that it's healthy. What I really want you to try and avoid is things like ready to eat, stay fresh products. So there's the bread that comes in the bag that keeps it fresh for 3 weeks. That's not supposed to happen. That is not healthy. That is not good for you. Time-saving things. So, the TV dinners and things like that, those are all designed for time-saving, to make it quick and easy, and those are bad for you. Some ingredients that we want to avoid. We've got the artificial colors and flavors, and these are rampant in everything. When you see caramel coloring, or caramel even in a lot of foods that you wouldn't think caramel would be in, that's an artificial coloring. So these are the kinds of things we want to look out for and not get tricked by. Artificial colors and flavors, they've been linked to allergies, asthma, hyperactivity, and headaches, and that's just to name a few of the kind of side effects, if we will. Artificial sweeteners are often used to lower the caloric intake or caloric value of something. But when we stop and think about it, we eat food to get energy. Why would I want to eat a food that has no calories in it? It sort of defeats the purpose. So these artificial sweeteners, not only are they kind of, what's the point in eating if you have no calories in your food, but they have a lot of negative effects. They have a negative effect on your metabolism, and they've been linked now in a lot of studies to weight gain and also to cancer. So there's something that we really want to stay away from. High fructose corn syrup, we hear about this everywhere now. It's a really cheap alternative to sugar, and it's very, very concentrated, and they put it in a lot of beverages. So if you're drinking, pop, juices that are not pure fruit juice, you'll often have this in there. And it actually increases your conversion of fructose to fat, and that is going to be bad for your waistline. It's also going to increase your risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer. And the other part is that it really overloads your liver. So it's really hard for your liver to process it. So your liver's busy churning away, trying to deal with this weird chemical we've now exposed it to. It doesn't get a chance to deal with all the regular things it's supposed to be dealing with. And so you kind of get like a bottleneck. Kind of think of a traffic jam or something like that. And suddenly you've got all this backlog and nothing's being processed, and you have all these toxins building up in your body that you don't want. So this is a really good one to stay away from. MSG, we've heard about this for forever, that it's not good for us. A lot of times on labels now, it'll be monosodium glutamate instead of MSG, because we all know MSG is bad for us, but we don't know that monosodium glutamate is. So it's all about tricking the consumer. So it stimulates your appetite, causes headaches. It has been linked to nausea, weakness, wheezing, and changes in your heart rate. So that's a pretty dangerous one. And then the last one I have on here is to do with trans fats, which is the hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated oils. And these are man-made oils. They're industrial oils. And your body, again, doesn't know how to process them. So you're taking this substance into your body. It doesn't know what to do with it, and it gets built up in your tissues and gets kind of collecting there. And it actually really imbalances your cholesterol. So if you're having any issues with your cholesterol, this is just going to kind of exacerbate that. The last thing is organics. So organics is kind of a hot topic. Just because it says organic does not mean that it's good for you. I shop at Community Natural Foods a lot and I love them, but there's lots of products on the shelves that say, organic and stuff like that, and it doesn't mean that it's good. It can still have organic sugars and organic refined flour and things like that are still not great for me. So it's not that I want you to go and buy everything organic, but especially with your fruits and produce and stuff like that, it's definitely a worthwhile investment. The reason is that organics, when you look at just the price tag per pound, they are really a lot more expensive. Grapes really drives me crazy. They're about $10 a pound. But the thing is that when you look at the price per nutrient, they are a bargain. The produce that is non-organic is almost always in really nutrient depleted soil. And when you have nutrient depleted soil, you can't have a nutrient rich product come out of it. So the thing to consider is, do you want to eat a lot of something that is a little pretty empty, or do you want to eat a little bit of something that's really dense? And studies have now shown that people who eat organic diets actually spend less per month on their grocery bill, because when you're eating nutrient-rich foods, you tend to eat less food. Most people on an organic diet tend to stop eating 3 meals a day. They just eat one main meal and kind of have smaller and nibbly kind of snacks through the day. So it's kind of an interesting perspective. And this is the last thing I wanted to recommend is, you may have heard of this book already. I think it's one of the best nutrition books out there, and it's Food Rules by Michael Pollan. And it's this little book. It's easy to read. It doesn't take any time. And it's kind of, this little, nutrition Bible, if you will, kind of a quick reference guide. And it has these great rules in it that are really simple, easy to follow and understand. So he has rules in there like, if it's got more than 5 ingredients, don't eat it. If you can't pronounce the ingredients, don't eat it. That you should leave the table a little bit hungry. Most people leave the table a little bit full. So when you first hear that little voice in your head that says, I'm done, listen to it and stop eating. So he has a lot of really great rules like that I just think simplify nutrition, make it about what it's really about. It's not about gimmicks and fads and all of that. It's really about doing what nourishes your body. So just a quick little recap of what we've gone over. First off, stress is a signal, and it's your body telling you that something has gone wrong. So if you're feeling that stressed feeling all the time, your body is telling you all the time that you need to slow down, you need to change something. So that's not a signal that we want to ignore. It's kind of that early alert system, right? So by ignoring it, we're damaging ourselves and we're leading ourselves down the wrong road. Managing your stress. So that goes back to those tools I gave you. The breathing is probably the best one you can start using. When you're eating in a stressed state, make sure you're chewing your food 25 times. That's going to slow you down, take things back a notch, and you're going to get all those really valuable enzymes mixed into your food that helps you digest better. Get that R&R time in, get some time in with your friends and your family doing things you love. You want to balance your blood sugar so that we're not creating stress through our diet. So make sure that you're using those little tips I gave you about the meal timing, and that's going to help you keep even blood sugar. I want you to hydrate. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to have water. It is so important. I know that for a lot of people, there's the concerns with the bladder control and stuff like that, but I can't emphasize enough how important water is. And if there's one thing you're going to do for yourself, it's having really good quality water. And then lastly, choosing your foods to be nourishing. So really making wise decisions about your food, not just eating for the sake of eating, but eating for the sake of nourishing your body, giving it the nutrients it needs so it can be healthy, and so that you can feel energized and excited about your life. So that's everything I had to go through. I just want to remind you guys once more about the evaluation forms on your table. I'd love for you to fill those out and return those to me before we all leave tonight. And now just to kind of open things up for questions. Thank you.
Where do you buy the mineral salts?
You can buy those. Oh, sorry. You can buy those a lot of places. Co-op now sells them. You can go into it's kind of in their deli section where they have that fancy cheese area. They have these little oval containers with all sorts of mineral salts. I'm not sure about Safeway. I haven't seen anything there, but I know that Superstore has them. I've seen it they have Himalayan salt, which is kind of a pink salt, and it's mixed in with their regular salts. And then health food stores will all have it.
How about sea salt?
Sea salt's a tricky one. Sea salt's a bit tricky. Some sea salt is refined and it is processed, and some sea salt isn't. So you want to look to see that it says unprocessed. Celtic sea salt is usually unprocessed.
Will the water dechlorinate in the fridge, or does it have to be on the counter?
The counter will make it happen faster. So if you put it in the fridge, because chlorine's a gas, the higher the temperature, the quicker it dissipates off, right? So the counter is about 24 hours. You could boil it as well, and it goes off even faster. But
So if you drink the water with lemon in it, you still have to dechlorinate it?
yeah, you'd want to dechlorinate your water first, and then put the lemon in after. Otherwise, you're treating your lemons to a chlorine bath. Yes.
Well water, would it have minerals in it, or does it need to be chloride?
It might have too much iron.
Yeah, the well water can be a trickier one. It shouldn't have chlorine in it, but it can be really mineral rich. So you just, I don't actually know a ton about the well water, but yeah, like you probably are getting quite a bit of mineral value out of it. You just want to make sure it's the right minerals.
Then they'll tell you what's
well water. I live in an acreage with wells. Basically, you have to get it tested to make sure that it's fit for human consumption, because some of that stuff's got high iron, high manganese, high carbonates. It's just, you don't want to drink it, or you can't even get your nose close to it because it smells too much like sulfur, right? So you got to be really careful with that. The best way to do it is they'll test it for free.
What's that?
The one that there's the well. You're supposed to test it.
Yes, you're supposed to test it. Matter of fact, the Alberta guidelines is that you should test it for E. coli's twice a year, and the government does that one for free. That's just for bacteria, right? So, but the mineral content, yeah, you got to be careful with that one.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
What's your take on distilled water?
Distilled water has been demineralized. So you have all the minerals taken out of it. So what you want to do then is add minerals back in it. And at health food stores, you can buy what's called Ionic trace mineral drops. And it's about $26, I think it is, for a fair-sized bottle of them. And you put about 10 drops in a liter of water. And it has, they actually get these mineral drops from the Salt Lakes, and they desalinize them, so it gets all that sodium taken out or very, very much reduced. And you're just adding those natural minerals back into the water. I use tap water that goes through a filtration system, so I put the minerals in my water all the time just to make sure I'm getting those.
One more question. What's your take on honey?
Honey, if it's unpasteurized, it's the best. So if you can get your honey from direct from like a honey farmer, that's fantastic. A lot of health food stores sell pure unpasteurized honey, and that has all that really good quality in it. If you're buying a lot of the honeys at a normal grocery store, they've been treated. So they've gone through a lot of different processes, and a lot of that nutritional value is taken out of it. But if you're getting it straight from the farmer, you're getting actually a really, really good quality product. And the glycemic index for it is lower, so you actually don't get a sugar spike out of it. So it's actually a really good source of, it's a really good sweetener to use. I use it in my tea all the time. Yeah?
What about blue agave?
Pardon me?
What about the blue agave?
The agave?
Pardon?
Is the agave syrup? You want to, again, it comes down to whether or not it's processed. So there's a lot of different varieties out there. So you want to look to see how it's processed, if it's processed. Usually if something is not processed, because this is such a kind of a selling point now, that usually will be written on the bottle, which maybe contradicts what I said earlier before, you don't have to advertise something's healthy, but usually those kind of details will be on there. If it's processed too, like this goes towards more like oils and stuff, you always want to see your oils have been cold pressed. Cold pressed is a really, really good thing. It means that it wasn't treated at high temperatures, so something to watch for. Any other questions? Yes?
Sometimes if people need some extra minerals or to improve the electrolytes in their body, there are various oils available you can use as well. Yeah,
there's mineral oils. There's the trace mineral drops I mentioned before are really good. There's the salt actually putting in your water. It doesn't get you as much of those minerals as you need, but it does help get some of those in. So there's a lot of different options out there. So, yes?
Margarine and butter.
Good one. Butter. Margarine is evil. So that's my personal opinion. It goes to the whole saturated versus unsaturated battle. And saturated fats are not bad for us. It's all about balance. So butter is a naturally occurring food. Margarine is 100% man-made. Go back 100, 200 years, nobody's sitting on a farm making margarine. It's impossible. So again, it goes back to that balance. I think the two best fats you can have in your kitchen are coconut oil, and extra virgin unrefined coconut oil, and butter. Because you can cook with both of them. You can use them at any temperature and they don't go rancid. A lot of different types of oils like vegetable oil, canola oil, that kind of stuff, when you cook with it, the high temperatures actually change the chemical structure of it, and it makes it basically rancid and your body can't process it. So it becomes a toxin for your body. Butter and coconut oil you can cook with, you can use them at any temperature, and they're not harmful to you. You can't go out and eat a pound of butter, just like you can't go out and eat a pound of any fat. You want to use it within reason and use it responsibly, but I 100% say butter over margarine.
But isn't the butter processed like that is in the stores?
Butter it's pretty natural, right? Like everything has in a store other than fruits and vegetables is gonna have a little bit of processing, and that's where people get confused about what is a processed food. Just like our milk, right? It's gonna have to be pasteurized and stuff like that. So it is partially processed. But if you have milk versus chocolate milk, the chocolate milk's more processed, right? So it's kind of, if you think of it in terms of good, better, and best, there's always different options. I was at a friend's house the other day. She fried me up an egg and she used margarine to do it. And I was somewhat horrified as I watched, but I do the right thing most of the time and my body's gonna get over it. So that was kind of, you roll with the situation, right? So you just do the best you can for yourself as often as you can.
What about salted and unsalted?
I would say usually the unsalted, and the reason for that is that the salt that's used in butter is that bad salt, right? It's the processed salt. But that little bit of salt isn't gonna kill you. Again, balance, right? So the unsalted, I say, is the better choice. Sometimes when you see butter and products like that now, if it's an organic butter or if it's like a bio butter and that kind of stuff, it'll say on it that it's like Celtic sea salt or something like that, so they're using a really good quality salt in it. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Butter and olive oil.
Depends on what you're using it for. If you're cooking with it, butter, because the olive oil will get denatured when you heat it up, and so it becomes a toxin for your body. If you want to have a salad and you're making a salad dressing and you want to drizzle some oil on it, olive oil is awesome. So it's just about knowing when to use it. So any oil that is liquid at any temperature, you shouldn't cook with. Things like coconut oil and butter, when you put it in the fridge, they go really hard. And that shows that it's kind of the quick rule of thumb that that's an okay butter to cook with. So that's the easiest way that I can usually teach people.
How about grains and like wheat and all that? Like that's everything. It's all processed, isn't it?
there's varying degrees of processed, right? So it goes to that good, better, and best. So you can have a white flour. You know, if we're talking about bread, let's say, you could have white bread, you could have 60% whole wheat, you can have 100% whole wheat, you can have whole grain, and then you can even have sprouted grain. Does everybody know what sprouted grains are? See a couple hands, but mostly no's. So sprouted grains are actually really fantastic. It's the closest thing to a living grain that you can get. Basically, after the grain is harvested, you can put it in water, and you keep changing the water, and it's kind of I don't like sprouting things myself, but they start to actually sprout, and that's when they're used. And so they're not refined at all. So a sprouted grain bread is about the best bread that you can get for yourself. But you can, you know, with wraps, like tortilla shell kind of things, you can, they're hard to find, but they have sprouted grain wraps. The closer you can go to like the higher end, the better, right? So whole grains, the next one down, then, you know, whole wheat, and then, you know, you start getting into those 60% and the white and that kind of stuff, and that's going to be more refined. Yes?
You are mentioning about when you fry, you use what's solid like butter, but you don't use the liquid. So all these places that use French fries, you don't use butter, you use oil. So that's all dangerous.
Yes.
So you cannot fry anything then, unless you go buy 10 pounds or 50 pounds of butter.
Yeah, it is hard. And again, that's why I say that 80% rule, right? I love French fries. You know, I love popcorn, right? When I go to the movies, I definitely get popcorn. Every now and then, I do go out for fast food. I'm not that type of, you know, nutrition coach that goes out and, you know, eats perfect all the time, and I never stray. But the thing is I know when I go out and I have those French fries, okay, yeah, they're cooked horribly. There's not a good thing in them. It's a workout for my body to process them. But I know that I've eaten right most of the time, and now I can enjoy it. It's a treat. It's an indulgence. And so that's how I look at that. It's not a staple of my diet. So you just want to make sure that you're limiting how often you have things like that, and being aware that there's processes that are really bad for your body helps you to be able to make more educated decisions so that you know how to create that balance in your life.
So I think we should talk about red wines. He's not finished down there yet.
Any oil is no good.
My goodness.
The oils, those liquid oils are good to be used at room temperature, but they're not good to cook with. Nope. So, you know, once in a while, you're going to cook with them, but hopefully not that often. Yes?
Which red wines are the best for you?
Which, sorry?
Red wines.
Well, that's a good question. I like Shiraz.
Red wines, which one are the best for you?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a red wine that's better than the other ones. There's lots of different stuff out there. There's because there's like there's the organic ones and stuff like that, but I don't know if they're actually that much better for you or anything. So I don't know. You stumped me.
Ones that do not contain sulfites are the best for you.
That's a good point, actually. I used to work for a gentleman who had really, really bad sensitivity to sulfites in wines, and a glass of wine would be like he drank 2 bottles. And so yeah, if you can get wines without sulfites in them, you're definitely a step ahead of the game. It's a really good point. Any other questions? Oh, back there, yeah?
You mentioned about
There's certain types you take wines with sulfite in it.
What's the difference? The various kinds.
The various kinds of, sorry? Oh, yogurt? With yogurt, there's fat-free yogurt. With fat-free yogurt, when they take the fat out of it, they replace the flavor with sugar and chemicals. So a fat-free yogurt, maybe it doesn't have fat in it, but it's got a ton of junk in it. And
skim milk with nothing just the skim milk became yogurt. Would that be acceptable as a
I've yet to see a yogurt that is fat-free that doesn't have sugars added.
So the skim milk got sugar?
Just plain, are you just talking about milk?
Skim milk Yes.
Well, the thing is, all milk contains sugar, like naturally occurring sugars. When you take the fat out of milk, you increase the glycemic index. So as you're digesting the food, like you take skim milk in compared to say 2%, it's gonna, the sugars go into your bloodstream a lot faster. So you can have a blood sugar spike, which is not good for you. I recommend going with like a 2% milk. I think that it has a lot more nutritional quality for you. The fats in there are good for you. Something that's become really confusing in our culture, and it has to do with a lot of the marketing and stuff out there, is that fats are bad for us, and they're not. The building blocks of every cell in our body is fats and proteins. And if we don't get healthy fats into our diets, real fats, then we're gonna crave fat all the time. And that's because our body needs it. And also like our brains need fat. Our brain is fed off of fat. So there's all these studies now that show that having a low-fat diet is really actually bad for your brain. So you wanna make sure you're getting the fats in your diet, and places like milk is a good place to get it. It's a naturally occurring fat.
So the skim milk yogurt is not the best?
No, I would go with a full-fat yogurt or full-fat milk. Yeah, get your fats.
Hey, you better book a lesson with this lady up.
So I have a question with the wine.
Oh, he was asking what the best wine was, and he had a good point. Wine without sulfites. If you can get a red wine without sulfites, it is better for you. So you had a question?
Now, the Greek yogurt that they're talking about now,
Yes.
is that still the best? Or?
It kind of gets to the point where it's like varying degrees, right? So I think Greek yogurt is 8% fat content. So you'd want to have less of it because it's going to have, more calories. And so it's, again, the balancing, right? Myself, the yogurt I eat is 3.5%, and I find it's very thick and creamy and all of that. So you just, if you're the more fat that's going to be in it, you just have to make sure you're not getting too much fats in your diet, right? So.
Oh, brandy, you were talking about alcohol.
I'm not an alcohol expert. I drink it, but I don't know a lot about it.
What about palm oils?
Palm oils? To be honest, I haven't researched them a lot, so I can't really have an educated answer about it. But I know that a lot of palm oils are really highly processed. So it's kind of like with coconut oil. It got a really bad rap for a long time because it used to always be really highly processed. And now you're seeing this, resurgence of extra virgin and unrefined coconut oils that are absolutely fantastic for you. And with the palm oils, if you can find one that's, extra virgin unrefined, then I would say you're probably okay, but it really goes back to how it's processed, so. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everyone. You guys had tons of great questions.